The following special presentation of your Hometown Health Connection Community Conversations, Heal, Talk, Act, is presented by Buffalo Healthy Living Magazine with support from the Buffalo Federation of Neighborhood Centers, Karamia Pet Resort, Circuit Clinical, Endeavor Health Services, Medical Society of the County of Erie, the National Federation for Just Communities, People Incorporated, Community Services for Everyone, Horizon Health Services, Spectrum Health and Human Services, Best Self Behavioral Health, and WBBZ-TV. Hello, I'm John DeSciullo. What happens when an individual experiences a mental health crisis that causes them to act out in a manner that is inconsistent with what we perceive as normal? What if their unusual or erratic behavior puts them at risk of harm? What if that individual puts somebody else at risk of harm? Cities and counties across the country are adopting what is known as the co-responder model to improve how they engage with people experiencing a behavioral health crisis. The model involves law enforcement and clinicians working together in response to calls regarding a person who is experiencing a behavioral health crisis and provides law enforcement with alternatives to having to arrest someone, and of course the ability to respond to non-criminal calls as well. Best of all, it provides a way to care for people who are in crisis and enables them to get the care that they need without spending time in jail or in the emergency room or in the police department, and enables their access to quality mental and substance use disorder treatment and services. It's an important topic. We recently learned that Endeavor Health Services is the only behavioral health agency that is providing this important and unique service. We've also learned that there are currently 5 police departments that have adopted this program that we're going to talk about on the program today. That's Buffalo, Cheektowaga, West Seneca, Town of Tonawanda, and the NFTA. The program has been highly successful, and other area police departments are also looking to adopt the same model. So joining us for our important and very informative community conversation are Eric Weigel, Director of Diversion Services at Endeavor Health Services, Jenna Colern, Program Manager of the Police Behavioral Health Team at Endeavor Health Services, and Jennifer Szymborski, an officer for the Cheektowaga Police Department. So welcome to our community conversation to you all.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Eric, we'll start with you. I want to get going. So let's start with the role that you play in all of this as Director of Diversion Services and all of the things that you do to put together this kind of work. Explain what it is.
Sure. Well, first of all, John, on behalf of Endeavor Health Services and our behavioral health team, I would like to thank you for having us here today to talk about this very important project that we have within the community.
Thank you.
Thank you. So this process, if you will, the co-responder model is really bore out of being able to respond to mental health emergencies within the community. And my role is actually to provide administrative oversight for the team and to go out and actually conduct additional business with other police departments to allow our model to evolve.
Give us a little bit of your background, Eric.
Sure. I've been doing this work for over 30 years. The last decade has really been focused on the criminal justice system, working with the local jail system, working with the local hospitals, and working with the state correctional facilities with individuals who are coming out from these institutions and reintegrating back into the community. The interesting thing about this current role is that it's actually doing the precursor to that kind of work, and that is trying to prevent or divert individuals from ending up in those types of institutions.
And that's what's unique about this particular concept that we're talking about here today.
Correct.
Yeah. And I would think that so much has been talked about in the mental health realm, certainly since COVID, that what you're doing is hopefully going to be picked up by other police agencies with a few that we mentioned early on, but so many can participate in this service.
That is true, and we have been marketing our program and process, and we look to continue to be able to have other communities within the Western New York area benefit from this type of a process.
Jenna, let's talk a little bit about your background. I noticed that you're not obviously the program manager of the police behavioral team at Endeavor, but you also have a master's degree in mental health counseling and a bachelor's degree in psychology. My daughter's going for a psychology degree too. How has that background prepared you for this role?
I have extensive schooling, but a lot of my career choices have also been in the mental health field with the focus of crisis de-escalation. So I went to Medaille where I did the clinical mental health degree, and that really helped me with communicating with clients on scene. So I practiced a lot of in-the-moment scenarios while I was in school that really helped prepare me for what I do now when I'm on scene. It helps with having people watch you when you're doing it, because you do a lot of things in school where they're like, sit here and act like a client and act like a counselor. So you're always in front of people, and that really helps doing what I do now, because you're always having people watch. You have patrol watch you while you're assessing, you have family, you have the community. So that's really helped me be comfortable with asking the really hard questions on scene.
And explain what you do on scene with the various police departments that you work with. What is that engagement all about?
The behavioral health team works in partnership with law enforcement. So there's not much that I don't go ever on scene without my law enforcement partners. So when I'm in Cheektowaga, it's usually with Officer Szymborski. Our goal is to divert from hospitals and jails. So usually when we're in the car en route to a call, we're running history. We're looking to see if they've had contact with office or police in the past, if they've had hospitalizations, and we're already formulating a plan of, okay, your police are telling me that this worked in the past, let's try this. And we already are formulating, we're brainstorming, we're doing all that prior to getting on scene. When we get on scene, we do an assessment. We assess for lethality, we assess for safety of the client and the community. And then me and my partner are formulating whether a transport to a hospital is needed or maybe a drop-in clinic.
It's a lot. Yeah. It's a lot to process, even on the scene.
Yeah.
You know, with what you're going into, you may think of in one way, and then you have to assess it. Jennifer, let's talk about you, and thank you for your service as a police officer and serving our community. What was the training like for you when the mental health issues became in the forefront? How did you synergize all of that training with what you know as a police officer?
So in the academy, the recruits are starting now. They've been getting it for a couple of years now, but once we figured out that the mental health was going to be such a big part of police work, they get 4 days of training in the academy. So every recruit coming out now gets a piece of the CIT curriculum, which is Crisis Intervention Team. So they will get 4 days of that, which is actually a day more than the state mandates. Then after that, after they get on the road, they can sign up for the advanced. The advanced is a 40-hour curriculum, and then in Cheektowaga, we have a specific BHT team. And so that team consists of 10 officers throughout all 3 shifts. So you will have a BHT on every single shift. And we have quarterly. So we'll get quarterly training in our police department. Each department that has it has their own within their own departments, but that's what ours does.
So you've gone through this training, obviously, and
Yes.
other officers have.
Correct.
And it's interesting to hear that these officers who have this training are on, it's interesting you point that out, for all shifts, so you're
Yes.
covered
Yeah,
in a 24/7
because crisis
basis.
is going to happen anytime, day or night.
So in a situation that may have escalated, how do you respond and understand all of that when, like we said with Jennifer, you're going right into the moment? How do you process all of that so quickly and to assimilate using that training to figure the situation out?
Yep. So some of that training that we get is some de-escalation training, some legal training, communication training, and we use that, when we go on scene. So we in police work are taught go, 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 call, call, call. Well, when it comes to mental health, it's not that fast. It slows way down. So we go in and we talk and we figure out what's going on. Why is this person acting the way they're acting? If somebody's in there throwing things around the house, why are they doing that? Is it angry? Is it because they're having a mental health crisis? And that's important because now we're figuring out that, this person's doing this because of this. And that's where Jenna comes in and, you know, oh, he's having a schizophrenia and not medicated, that's why he's destroying the house. That could be a criminal mischief arrest all day. And now instead, Jenna says, no, I think this is what this is, let's take him to the hospital.
So it might not result in an arrest.
Correct.
You would go in, assess the situation using that example you just identified, and then my guess is you would probably get that person some help if they haven't reached out to get help already.
So then we will decide what the best avenue is, whether it's a jail diversion or you know, a hospital diversion, and we figure it out as a team, and that's what we do, what's best for the client.
Yeah. Wow, I can't believe some of the situations I know that officers are put into. Eric, let's talk about Endeavor Health Services. How do you integrate with the community to bring all of these concepts to the forefront?
So much of what we do is really work with partnerships with entities within the community to get the word out and really destigmatize mental health disorders within our community. So it's not only professional agencies that we're working with, but we're also working with community members and really trying to educate individuals within the community that we shouldn't criminalize the mental health disorders that people may have, but rather work to get them the proper treatment. And also maintaining individuals within the community is a much better approach than having someone enter into an institution if it's not necessary. Now, of course, hospitalizations are sometimes necessary, but it's also the follow-up work that we do with making sure that once the crisis is over, that we're integrating the individuals with the appropriate types of services that are available within the community. So it's that partnership that we really work towards developing and maintaining and expanding on a daily basis.
It's not just Endeavor alone, but you mentioned the various, there are umpteen services just in Western New York alone that I would think you integrate with, in addition to the law enforcement agencies, to give them this guidance.
Correct. And that's really important because we know that in the behavioral health world that if treatment is not easily accessible and if it's not necessarily located in a person's neighborhood, that it decreases the likelihood that they're going to follow through with those types of services. So making sure that wherever that agency is located, near the individual, preferably, that we would make those referrals out, not just to Endeavor Health Services. And it's really important because we represent the community and not just Endeavor.
Right. It's a partnership with so many of the organizations.
Correct.
Jenna, you talked about going out into the field, if you will, or going out into the world. We don't want to risk any confidentiality with anybody that you might have had an encounter with, but tell us about maybe an experience to the degree that you can that is an example of what we just discussed, all this training that comes into the forefront, getting into a situation and the outcomes.
Yeah. So when thinking about like mental illness or a mental health crisis, a lot of people don't know what that really looks like, right? We can be dealing with a client who has significant mental health symptoms that are present, and we are there to de-escalate and get them the proper help. Or we're dealing with somebody maybe who has lost a loved one and are really in not the best place in that moment. And so our goal is to always just ensure that we're doing what that client needs in that moment. So if you are dealing with the loss of a loved one and you're struggling, being transported to ECMC may not be the correct place for you. Maybe a drop-in clinic or linking back with a counselor or finding your family supports that can come home and make sure you're not alone for that time. So when dealing with a mental health crisis, there's not a particular look that we go for. It's really anybody who's struggling. And we're called to all of those cases. We're called to people who are just honestly in the moment struggling, and our goal is to de-escalate and not get them down to a baseline, but just in a better position than when we first responded to them.
How long does maybe some of that process take when you're in a situation like that?
So we've ranged anywhere between 10 minutes to 2 hours on scene. We, again, like Officer Szymborski said, we really have the time to slow everything down and give these clients our undivided attention. And sometimes the client can't tell us what they need, so then we rely on their supports or the community. for assistance. So it really looks different, but we are able to slow down the clock and really focus on an individual.
So Officer Szymborski, if somebody is in a situation and you decide maybe not to arrest them, where did they go? Where do you take them? Where does the police department go? And if they don't have Jenna with them or another individual, how does that work? What's the process after that initial meeting?
So the good thing about Endeavor is our clinicians are fantastic. If we don't have a clinician on, we can easily call them, and they will answer our call, and we just, hey, we have this going on, where can we go? And they'll tell our officers. So, it's nice that we have that kind of relationship with them. But, so 2 examples, say we have a trespass, a homeless person that's trespassing. That would be a trespass going to jail, but instead we would take them to a food pantry, somewhere where they can get food and they can get clothing. And then the important part is that they're not just getting that, because they could walk into a pantry anytime, but we try to link them with services, get them with, get their services going so they're not this constant going between homeless again and they get into the shelter, homeless again, they're going into the shelter. Another one is, say we have somebody that is having a very tough time mentally. And we would take them we call it a 941, but instead of taking them to the hospital against their will, we take them to a drop-in clinic, like she said. There are so many services that even the police don't know about, and that's why it's such an important link that we have, because they open the door to all these other places that we go. We used to only know jail. We only used to know hospital. Now we know there's this place and this place and this place and this place, and we will try all those before we have to go to the hospital if that fits.
It's a lot to process. Do you ever, unfortunately, in some instances, have to just make an arrest?
Yes, and even when that happens, even when we had to make an arrest, we'll still have a clinician come up into our booking and engage with them, find out why they're doing what they're doing, so when they get out, we can engage with them again, because we're going to engage with them again. And so we'll still go in and deal with them in booking, and or we'll deal with the courts. Maybe we need to have the courts involved for mandated stuff. So we just don't lose linkage with them just because whether they go jail or they go hospital, we continue to follow, and that follow-up piece is so important.
Yeah, very important, that detail, so they're not just forgotten about
Correct.
in that moment.
Right.
Eric, you talked about connecting with other police departments. What have you heard from other police departments? Do they embrace this and say, this is really important, or do they look at it and say, well, mental health is kind of a front page topic, so they kind of go with it because it's a trending piece? What's the response been? Do they embrace it, or do they look at it as another layer of, oh my gosh, I have to now worry about this on top of law enforcement with all of the peculiarities that go with that? What's the response?
Sure. So most of the police departments, they recognize the benefits of this model. Oftentimes it's funding. How can they support this from a funding standpoint? But also from the standpoint of really having a culture that is within that police department that embraces the idea that we can divert these individuals that have mental health disorders or substance use disorders and actually get them the kinds of services they need. So once again, not to criminalize these behaviors,
Right.
but rather keep them in the community where they can lean on the support that they have from other family members or community members to really be able to have a long-term process in place to address those long-term issues.
We just did a program, our last show on Community Conversations, about substance abuse, and I would think that that's become even more an issue in the last decade or so, coupled with the mental health issues that go with it.
Sure, so co-occurring disorders in our field, that's what we really refer to that as, and specifically the co-occurring substance use disorder and mental health, and you can understand how those two can really synergize and create almost a third disorder. So we specialize at Endeavor Health Services, we specialize on working with individuals with co-occurring disorders and when looking at the person as a whole, as opposed to working with the substance use disorder or working with the mental health, but actually with the individual as a whole to address those issues.
Yeah. Jenna, what's a typical day like for you?
So it's not really a typical day when thinking about mental illness, right? What my clinicians, who are the boots on the ground people that are doing the work, what their day looks like is they start their day each day in the departments. They are usually in briefings. They discuss some of the clients that maybe overnight struggled, and they kind of formulate their follow-up plans, because again, that follow-up piece is super, super important. And then we get ready for our day. So that could mean one day we may have 1 to 3 call-outs, and another day we can have 5 call-outs. A call-out is when we are being dispatched to a scene to assist officers or patrol with a mental health crisis.
And are you based out of Endeavor Health? Are you based out of the Cheektowaga Police Department?
I have all my clinicians are embedded in the police department, so they start their days off in each department. Yes.
Yeah. There's an organization that you're involved with here. I want to read it, make sure I get it right. Comprehensive Psychiatric Emergency Program at the Erie County Medical Center, ECMC. What is that?
So that is where we transport our clients if we feel they need to be hospitalized, or if we want a second set of eyes on them for another assessment. So we go on scene, we assess, and we're just saying, yes, this person should probably go to the hospital. They're not safe to be in the community at this time. We then coordinate with ECMC, and we continue communicating with them. So we work very closely with them because that's who's now going to continue the care of that client. And that can be a day, that can be a week, that can be 2 weeks. So ECMC's role is very important in relationship to what we do because they're that next step for our clients. At ECMC, they do a slew of assessments and testing. They contact their treatment providers. They offer the best support they are able to, and then they'll coordinate with us. They'll call us. They'll say, we're ready to discharge this client. They have an appointment with whatever agency on this day, and we follow up with our clients. Again, that follow-up piece is very important. So our goal is to always follow up between 24 to 48 hours after post-crisis or after a release from ECMC.
ECMC, the sort of the go-to institution, I would think.
ECMC is the Erie County community or Erie County Hospital that we transport for psychiatric holds, yes.
So Officer Szymborski, here we are in a situation and somebody is just completely unreasonable. We've tried, Jenna and her team, you and your team. What do you do in a situation like that?
So we talk and we give them options. Sometimes people feel they're out of control and they have no control, and we try to give them some control back. That may look like simply, hey, come outside with me, and I actually keep in my patrol car food, clothing, water, and I will offer that to them, and let's come outside. We will actually transport if we have to. Some people are afraid of the financial that comes with an ambulance ride. And so, listen, we think you need to go to the hospital, but I will give you a ride and I will stay with you the whole time. Jenna and I will go with you. And that's really important too, is that they're seeing the same people, and so they get a connection with us. And so when they see me come through the door, they'll know me by name. And they know that they trust me. I don't try to lie to them. If I feel they're going to the hospital, I don't lie to them. We're going to go to the hospital because I feel that's what you need right now. But we had a bond with the community, and they'll specifically ask for us. They'll call 911 themselves and ask for a specific BHT person because they know that we've had extra training. They know who they're going to get, and that's huge in the community, the mental health community, that bond, because they were so afraid of the police before, of just going to the hospital and they didn't care, and now they know that there's a little bit of a different approach.
It brings community policing to a whole new level.
It does.
Yeah. And I can see where that intimidation exists when they see an authority figure come in to their home or their situation. So Eric, if somebody has a problem, obviously if there's an issue, you'd call 911, I would think. Obviously that's a given. But there are other ways that people can reach out for help, are there not?
There are, but it would be important, if it is an emergency, 911 should be the first tier. And you can specifically ask for a behavioral health team to respond if it's perceived to be a mental health emergency. But we also have an email address at Endeavor Health where it's my BHT, Behavioral Health Team, and it's important, my BHT, because it's a community response, at EHS, Endeavor Health Services, New York.org.
Great. And we'll have that address in just a little bit so that people can reach out, even if they think there's something brewing at home, they can reach out and communicate through email or some other method.
Correct.
Yeah, that's interesting. Not just wait till the crisis.
Correct.
Jenna, let's talk about some positive statistics as a result of all of these endeavors we've talked about.
Yeah. So BHT, Behavioral Health Team, has a 70% successful diversion rate, which means we are able to, or we have left 70% of all clientele that we have call out, that we've been called to in the community. So whether that's at home or we've transported to a drop-in clinic, a shelter, they have been able to remain in the community in some way. So when thinking about statistics, everybody's like, oh, what's that number? But when BHT members are thinking of success, we often look at the success as, we dealt with somebody in a mental health crisis and now they have de-escalated. That's a success for us. They are in a better place before we left their house. So it's hard to capture what success looks like because to each person, it looks different. To each client, it looks different. To each community, it looks different.
Right.
For BHT, we're looking at the escalated client becoming de-escalated. So at the end of each call, have we successfully minimally done that? That's a success to BHT.
And Officer Szymborski, sometimes you may go back, like you were saying, a couple of times, but then after a while, I guess the success would be that you're all of a sudden not going back to that home or that situation. And that would be considered a success.
Yeah. We had one specifically, we had a male that was living in the woods by one of our school districts. And so we had to go trucking through the woods and back there, and we made contact. He was living there for 2 years. And so the challenges we had with him was his whole life is right there in this campsite, and he didn't want to go to any mission because he couldn't bring all his belongings. So we would bring the services out to him. It took a long time to communicate with him because we'd have to make meetings because he didn't have cell service. And so we finally were able to find him housing. My clinician and I went out into the woods, we packed him up, put all his stuff in my police car, and we drove him to his new house. And then the best part of the story was a couple months later, he ended up messaging me on our CPD, our Cheektowaga Facebook, and he thanked me, and he thanked our clinician, and he told me he got glasses for the first time.
That's great. That's a great story.
That's a great win for us, yeah. It's great when we can make a difference in someone's life.
Well, and you are making a difference. And with all the time we have now in community conversation, it was great to end on something uplifting like that. And let's make sure we get all that information out as well. So we're out of time, as I said, for this community conversation, but we want to thank Eric Weigel, Jenna Colern of Endeavor Health Services, and Officer Jennifer Szymborski of the Cheektowaga Police Department for being here today. You guys are doing God's work out there. So Eric provided us with that important contact information. So here they are. Get a pen and paper. Right? The BHT team email is mybht@ehsny.org. Okay. Here's the phone number: 895-6700. It's 895-6700, extension 4023. The Endeavor Health Services, their website is ehsny.org, and all the information is here on the screen for you. Of course, 911 if there's an emergency. And Crisis Services is out there as well. So if there's somebody that needs help and you want to reach out to Crisis Services, that's crisisservices.org. We're going to continue these important community conversations on WBBZ, produced in partnership with Annette Pinder, Buffalo Healthy Living Magazine. We want you to be inspired to make change, just as these fine folks are doing, and have the conversations with one another on the topics that need to be talked about. Thanks for watching here on WBBZ-TV. This special edition of your hometown Health Connection Community Conversations, Heal, Talk, Act, was presented by Buffalo Healthy Living Magazine with support from the Buffalo Federation of Neighborhood Centers, Karamia Pet Resort, Circuit Clinical, Endeavor Health Services, Medical Society of the County of Erie, the National Federation for Just Communities, People Incorporated, Community Services for Everyone, Horizon Health Services, Spectrum Health and Human Services, Best Self Behavioral Health, and WBBZ-TV.